Hi, guys. Welcome to the Covid Commentary SLC. This is actually our second episode with me and CJ. We didn't have a name last time, so I just called it the Coronavirus Podcast, but we came up with the name Covid Commentary SLC. So keep an eye out for us in the future. Give us a like, give us a follow. We're going to be doing a bunch more of these shows in the future. And I just wanted to thank you, Christian, for doing these shows with me. Actually, I really appreciate it. I feel like it's going to be a good let out of all the tension that builds from reading all this crazy news every day. And before we get started, I just wanted to say that any of you guys listening to this, feel free to hit us up and get on the show if you're doing as much researching as me and CJ are. No reason we can't get you on and get your perspective. I know there's a couple guys I've been talking to that may be interested in that. So
definitely.
All right, man. What another crazy week, of course.
Oh, man.
It's going to be like crazy. This way for a while, I feel like. Yeah, how have you been holding up lately? How you been feeling?
I'm good so far. I mean, I did just go to the store, and I was even surprised I went to the bank, and the guy that walked up next to me was coughing and stuff, and I'm like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of people report about either trying to hide their coughs or getting freaked out when people around them cough. I haven't been out too much lately, but I do want to start making my own masks, because I know the masks are really hard to get around here. And so I've been seeing some things about making your own masks, which I want to start wearing one out and start setting that standard for here in Utah, because I don't see many people with them. But we will actually get into that. I have an article here about this movement kind of starting about people making their own masks. But we'll get to that a little bit later. We'll as we will with probably most shows here, we'll get started with the numbers. And wow, they are showing no signs of slowing down, especially not here in the U.S. We're seeing a continuation of that exponential growth for sure.
Oh yeah, the U.S. has been crowned the victor of not only total cases but active cases.
Yeah, that's true. So let's see. As of right now, actually, let me refresh this. I made the mistake of not refreshing it last time. So, okay, everything's looking pretty much the same. So, active cases, we're sitting at 82,214, which the more I hear about this coronavirus, the more I hear just how long really it takes to work its way through your system. And so, I mean, obviously, with how much case we've been getting lately, I mean, we've gotten, I believe, over 10,000 the past 2 days, maybe even 3 days. And then today we've got 17,000 so far. And so, obviously, most of those cases are new. So that means our active cases is really high as a few of those start to peak and go away eventually. And we've only got 1,800 recovered, but I know I did see a big jump in that today. That was, I believe it was like around 300 or something. We had less recovered than we had total deaths, but that jumped way up to 1,800. And first thing I thought of is this the chloroquine treatment starting to kick in, or have you heard of that treatment?
Yeah, I've heard of it, and I don't know if it's entirely reliable. I know it has worked in the past, but it's also, I feel like the recovery sense is also those people that were at the back end that have finally gotten tested that are starting to recover that didn't necessarily need treatment or anything like that.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. It's probably too early to call it on the chloroquine. We probably wouldn't see any of the recoveries coming in on that yet. And I have heard mixed things about it as well. I know Trump's touting it like it's the savior of this whole situation, but if you're curious about it, listen to what Dr. Martinson has to say about it. He's coming at this with a really scientific medical mindset, and Right now, the studies on the hydroxychloroquine, and I believe there's another thing in there too, but the studies on it are really small so far. We're talking like 30 or 40 people that have been in those studies. So can't know. I mean, even you can't really draw any conclusions from that, but it can provide hints. And some of the studies have showed that it's had good results, and the other study has shown that it was actually the same recovery rate as if you didn't have the chloroquine.
And fair
So
warning.
we will see on that.
I was gonna say, fair warning. People had purchased it on their own online and had taken it, and both of them died. So
I did actually. I saw that article, and I know from the one I saw at least was somebody who took it, but it was like a tablet in like I want to say like a pool cleaner or something, and it has the same thing in it, but it's not for human consumption. So I think he took something he wasn't supposed to take, and he died from it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm just making an example. Don't try to self-medicate.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with that. From what I've heard, it's a pretty volatile treatment option, even that, and you got to be pretty accurate with the dosage, otherwise you can overdo it really easy. So definitely don't try and do any of that by yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
But okay, so total numbers here, like we said, US is now in first place at 17,000. We're not seeing too many deaths here in the US so far, although that is rising pretty quickly. I remember a couple of days ago we were getting like 100, 120, 150, and I believe we got 200 yesterday, and now we're at 268 today. So I could see that catching up to Italy here in a day, a week. I could see us getting up into the 700s with Italy and Spain.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
I mean, a lot of people are saying. Go ahead.
I was going to say we're just going to end up being the leader in said cases and deaths, and I mean, right now, even with active cases, we have almost 20,000 more active cases than any other country, including China and Italy. So.
Yeah, and that's probably why Italy's deaths is so much higher than us right now, because if you look at their recovered, they have 10 times more recovered than us. So that means basically the cases they do have are more mature than the cases that we have. But what makes up the majority of our 85,000 is all fairly new. So they haven't had time to progress to that point in the disease where you could actually die. So I personally expect to see a pretty big jump in the U.S. deaths here within the next couple of days.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they even get up to the thousands here by next month.
Yeah. I've seen Italy and Spain kind of top out at 700 per day, and it makes me kind of curious, like why is it staying at 700? Well, I mean, they are on lockdown, so maybe they kind of have reached a little bit of a happy medium where they're not going to get too many more deaths per day. They've kind of got a lid on it a little bit. But yeah, hopefully we don't see that jump up, because if this thing really gets a foothold somewhere, I mean, we could easily see thousands of people dying every day. So haven't seen that yet, though. Germany is kind of an interesting case here. They've got, they're ranked number 5 with 43,000, and they're getting 7,000 a day. Pretty low on the deaths. And what's very odd here is their serious or critical is only at 23. So that means out of their 43,000 cases, only 23 need an ICU bed. From what I've heard from that, it's not really reliable. We can't really rely on that. They seem to be being dishonest about that.
Yeah.
But one thing I forgot to mention here, the serious critical up here in U.S. this is going up really fast. We're at 2,100 serious cases in the U.S. of people that need to be hospitalized. I heard in California, 20% of the total cases they've had have all needed hospitalization.
Wow.
And there's a lot of different ways you can look at that. It's probably not actually going to be that high, but that's pretty alarming amount there.
Yeah, I mean, California is kind of like a retiree state as well as Florida. So I mean, I expect that those states to be hit pretty hard within the next month or two.
So I've noticed we can click on the United States here and we can actually go in and look at state by state. And let's just do a quick rundown of this. I know New York is obviously just taking the majority of all of our cases right now. They have almost half of all the cases in New York, which makes perfect sense. I mean, they're all packed in a pretty tight area, touching surfaces. This thing lives on surfaces. I swear, every time I hear a new statistic, it's like adds another day or two on how long it can survive. I think you might as well just assume it can live on anything for a week.
Yeah. Basically, I mean,
know. I did hear in the Diamond Princess cruise that they found a virus RNA 17 days later after everyone had evacuated from the ship. And that freaked me out a lot at first, but I did hear that can't necessarily, that doesn't mean that there was live virus particles 17 days later. And if it's not alive, then it can't infect anyone. So they found the particles 17 days later, but they weren't alive. So.
So at least they can infect anybody, or so they say.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything,
New Jersey.
I was going to say, if anything, they could. That's like basically how you get a resolution and use those antibodies to you get the dead virus, and basically that's a cure. So it's just however they're going to choose to go about doing that. So that way we do have some sort of vaccination, and then testing for that, of course.
Yeah, I know the process of making a vaccine has something to do with that, like putting in a week set of the virus or something. I don't know exactly the real steps behind that, but yeah. So New Jersey, I believe they have started growing faster than California. I know when they first started this, it was hitting California and Washington, and yeah, now New Jersey and Florida. I mean, as we scroll down here, we're starting to see over 100 cases per day in a good 40% of the states here now. So, and I mean, if we look at New York, where New York was at 2 weeks ago, they were probably only getting like 100 cases a day. And that's the thing with this that nobody really gets. Like here in Utah, we're getting like 50 or 70 cases a day. So people think, oh, okay, we've got it under control. But people don't realize that it just starts with that slow growth. And then next thing you know, we see 500 in a day and we see 1,000 a day. And New York just got 6,000 just today. And I imagine their hospitals are not a good place to be right now.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that one at all. I would not want to step foot into a hospital, let alone the state of New York right now.
Oh yeah, I would not want to go there at all for sure. I mean, I've been watching a lot of Governor Cuomo, a lot of his speeches. Have you seen a lot of those?
Oh yeah, smart guy. He's pretty much knows what
I get a pretty good vibe.
He's handling it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much anyone in politics, I kind of don't trust too much. But as far as politicians go, he seems like one of the more trustworthy, straightforward guys.
Yeah.
But man, I've been watching his, and the most recent one I watched, he came on and he was just like pale as a ghost. Looked like he hadn't slept in days. Looked like he aged 10 years in a week. This is really
that's what you would expect Trump to look like.
Yeah, exactly. Trump's looking pretty relaxed these days. I don't know what's
everything's
going on.
Great. We're going to be reopening by Easter.
Oh my gosh, dude. He is pulling the classic Trump, just give everyone confidence, get everyone invested in the markets, just keep everyone happy. Oh man, I think it's gonna turn out really
started about the markets.
I know, like they actually have the balls to go up right now. Like, are you kidding me? But I mean, of course, that's all. I mean, it's half from Trump trying to build confidence, and the other half is the $6 trillion or whatever in new commitments they just made to support the markets in various ways.
Yeah.
So that money's got to go somewhere, and it's going to end up boosting the Dow.
Oh, for a little bit until basically until it just falls off again. I mean, it's not something that until the virus goes away or until they have some sort of vaccine, it's one of those things that are going to continue to fall. I mean, it's going to jump
Yeah,
up for a
it's
little
either
bit, but yeah.
Yeah, it's either going to continue to fall, or I've heard this guy I listened to. He said his theory is that they backstop the Fed or the Dow at 18K, which basically means that anytime it's going to get lower than that, they just throw in a bunch of more money. And when this whole thing first started, they didn't have the proper facilities open. The Fed didn't have all the facilities open to put money exactly where it's needed. But over the past week or two, they've opened up several new facilities that are in charge of getting money exactly where it needs to be, like in the corporate side of things. And I don't know them all too well, but they've got them all open now to where they can get the money right where it needs to be, and that means it doesn't have the lag behind it, because normally they print money through the repo market or something, and then it's got to work its way through the banks and then slowly into the markets. But now it can go right where the problem is. So essentially, I feel like we may not see the markets drop too much more just because of how much money they're willing to print and throw at it. But that means we've got much bigger problems, because that
Gonna
means
say,
they're
you know what
going to
happens when you print
devalue the
money?
dollar. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't have to be a genius to understand that you can't just create more money. And if you ask the average person on the street, like, about the money we create here in the United States or across the whole world, they have no idea really what's going on. And even when I bring it up, everybody just looks at me like I'm just crazy, some conspiracy theorist talking about money printing and talking about how the dollar could collapse. But yet it's
I
been
mean, we
happening
are.
for a decade. Yeah, we are. It's just one of those things that people hear. They're just like, no, or maybe they believe it, but it just doesn't fully register of how
They
big
don't
of a
want to
deal that
believe
is.
it.
That too, yeah. A lot of things like that. Like even this whole virus, I mean, really hits that type of that thing where it's
Hmm.
just too crazy to register for some people. People are
Well, you
going
could be
about their daily
comfortable.
lives. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You just can't, like, and the normalcy bias, which we touched on last show, and just people just. I mean, it's like I feel like it's like a human trait to just kind of deny anything that sounds really outlandish, because it's just a safer bet to just deny that it's going to come all together.
Yeah. It's always easier to deny what's actually happening in front of you than it is to, accept it and then have to move forward. That's a general life lesson in being a human being. It's just one of those things that, you have to learn, accept, evaluate, and then, reevaluate, and then, figure it out.
Exactly. And I mean, when we're talking about something of this degree, it's like like a full acceptance of this. I mean, obviously we have no idea what's really going to happen, but if you're going to really come to peace with what is going on, then that means you're accepting that life may not really go back to how it was before this.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And it won't.
I mean, yeah, if I don't want to make any predictions or anything. I want to try to avoid that as much as possible, but that is definitely a real possibility with this. And that sounds just crazy to say, but wow, this could really shake everything to its core.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I even seen today, just when I went to the store, at Macy's, they have face shields. Basically, it looks like bulletproof glass in front of all the cashiers now.
Oh yeah, I saw a picture of that. That was at Macy's.
Yeah, I seen it at Macy's. They did not have it at Smith's. So, but also at Smith's, when you walked in, they had gloves ready for people as well as like Lysol wipes and stuff. Whereas at Macy's, they just had the Lysol wipes and the usual, but they were completely out.
I see. I know they're doing that at Harmon's as well. Let's see. I know I sent you a link. Oh yeah, just right here. Workers in 8 Amazon warehouses test positive for coronavirus. And I mean, I know we're going to start seeing stuff like that in the grocery stores, in all the things that they deem essential. Yeah, just because of the contagiousness of this virus. I mean, it's crazy because we're sending everyone home. All the quote unquote non-essential workers. We're starting to, at least here, and which it's weird because it leaves the essential people at the highest level of vulnerability. And
Exactly.
if the virus gets a foothold in any of those industries, like shipping, like Amazon, like if you have, I mean, it says right here, workers in 8 Amazon warehouses test positive for coronavirus. So what are they going to do in those? Does that mean they shut the whole thing down?
Well,
And, that's a massive warehouse.
well, you have that, and then even like what was it today that it came out with the TSA at at the airport. Like you can't just
Yeah,
have somebody
I
at an
saw that as
airport.
well.
I mean, that was the same airport that we had 1,500 missionaries come in, or 16, along with
Oh,
their
really? Same
their
one?
20,000 or whatever family members.
Yeah, yeah. In
God.
case you're listening from out of state, we had here in Utah. We were you probably know. I mean, there's a lot of Mormons here. I was raised Mormon. A lot of the people I know were raised Mormon, and we had like 1,600. I don't know if it was 1,600 missionaries or if it was 1,600 people gathered at the airport. But like obviously, social distancing is the number one thing on everyone's mind right now, and people are starting to like do public shaming if you're not following the social distancing. And so all these pictures show up online of the missionaries coming home, and there's just a sea of people standing in the airport greeting all these people coming in from outside of the country. I believe these ones came from the Philippines. I wonder
Yep,
how bad it is in the
Philippines.
Philippines.
Well, you would
See.
never really know
Oh yeah.
because how well is their healthcare system?
Yeah, exactly. They're probably not doing the greatest testing there, but let's see. I just pulled up the Philippines. They have 700 cases right now, which total cases per 1 million. Okay, they must have a lot of people at the Philippines because they
Yeah,
have a pretty
Philippines does have
low
a
amount.
huge population, or at least a huge population per square mile, considering the size of their
I
country.
see.
So this is actually saying
I
right now,
see.
I just pulled up an article that has the Salt Lake City is urging. Oh, I guess that'll play.
Are you playing a video?
Yeah, it just actually started playing, but I figured I'd let it.
I can't hear it or anything. So
Okay. Yeah, because it was a. Well, if you can't hear it, then that's good. I was just worried about that as well. But it's basically saying that the Salt Lake City is urging all missionaries that came home to isolate themselves for 14 days.
yeah, sounds like more of like a guideline thing than something that's going to be actually enforced.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I heard I can't remember where I saw this, but I think there's like 20,000 plus missionaries abroad right now, and they're trying to get them all home, and they're from all they're all across the world right now. So
Yeah.
I mean
And most
that
of
yeah,
them
that
are from Salt Lake
really
City.
yeah, most of them come from here, that's for sure. And so but they do come from another couple states too. So I mean yeah, that could really give a huge boost to this whole thing happening because you picture the missionaries coming home and then they're there with their families greeting their families and then it just creates this whole new possible chain of events.
I seen a picture actually, and not to hate on Mormons or anything, but there was a picture that had somebody had wrote on their car that said like the Lord blessed us with an angel, and then it said quote unquote COVID-19 that brought home our missionaries early.
By the way, it's cutting out your voice a little bit on my end. Hopefully, it's recording. I think because what this program does, I think it records your voice on your computer, but then it just sends a separate one to me. So hopefully, the one that it's recording on your end is actually good. So we'll just continue with that. Yeah, so I guess get into some more local news here. We've got here in Utah, we've got Summit County just ordered their residents to stay home until May 1st. So they're issuing that stay-at-home order. And I've actually got a buddy that I've been messaging pretty often. His name's Troy. Hopefully he's listening to this. He's in Summit, and yeah, they just barely issued that order. And from what I understand, I don't think it really changes too much because, they've already kind of issued a nationwide thing of like no gatherings over 10 people. But I mean, for the most part, I mean, obviously restaurants and all those big social gathering places are closed, but for the most part, everybody's still going to work unless you work in a restaurant or something. And so I don't, yeah, I don't really think this. I mean, we're gonna slow it down, which is good. We gotta flatten the curve, but I mean, I think we're gonna see cases growing here in Utah and nationally until we really, start. It's crazy because we gotta shut down the whole economy basically. But I mean, yeah, I feel like we've gotta get the whole thing stopped for a while of people not really even going to their standard job, especially construction people and just all the standard jobs out there.
National shelter in place.
Yeah, that's technically what they did, right? A shelter in place for Summit County.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's what needs to be done nationally and actually, not that I'm all for having police and having like the National Guard basically patrol the streets, but in some sort of sense, you got to think with how aggressive this thing is, you can't just sweep it under the rug and hope for the best. You got to go at it aggressively.
Definitely. And yeah, and I mean from a total, like if we zoom out all the way and look at it from the biggest perspective we can, in my mind, I could see an argument for them making to not shut down the whole economy, just because, like we talked about in the last show, even if we do, let's say we did the strictest lockdown possible, I mean, all that would really do is just kind of slow it down to a trickle. And then if we started opening things up again, then it would kind of start attacking people again. So there's this happy medium. I've heard it referred to as the hammer and the dance. I don't know if you've seen that article at all, but it's basically saying we got to put down the hammer, which is the really strict measures for like a couple weeks. And then the dance is the reopening, the slowly reopening of society, which
really
is
does
a
have
much
to be
more precise thing.
Yeah.
Exactly, a slow dance. Yeah. Yeah, of just taking every decision case by case and thinking, have these people already gotten it? Can they go back to work? Are these people less vulnerable? I mean, whole lot of decisions that you got to make of weighing the loss of life versus the loss of an economy.
Yeah. What's I mean, they say that's the saying is you can't put a dollar cost on a human life. So in that sense, like, you got to balance what's more important, but then also when everything settles down and we do flatten that curve, we need to have something to, heal. We need to have something to come back to, even if it is a, burnt up economy.
Definitely. And yeah, I for sure see both sides of those arguments. I know Trump seems to be leaning more towards the economy side of the argument. I feel like in my opinion, he's probably a little bit too far leaned on that, especially because he's just being dishonest. He's straight up downplaying, just like he's been doing the whole time. I mean, throughout this whole thing, all he's done is downplay the whole time. Whenever it's, when it first came on the scene, in the US, scientists were talking about how this was a big deal like a month before that.
Mm-hmm.
So I already kind of had been hearing that. So I knew it was going to be a big deal. But then now that it's here and it actually is kind of a big deal, he's kind of accepted that it's like it's here and we need to do something about it. But he's thinking it's going to go away soon. And there's all these corporations and all these investors out there that just want to believe him and they want
they
it to
need
go
to have
away.
their money.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, they have some sort of bias because they want things to return to normal. They're just waiting for someone to say, yeah, it's going to return to normal. And they're like, okay, perfect. I'm going to believe that because that's what I want to be true.
Yeah.
Yeah, complete bias there. Let's move on to a little bit of world news here. This happened just a day or two ago. The Olympics that were going to be happening in Japan. Yes, in Japan.
Yep.
They're now postponed
Tokyo.
until next year. Yeah, Tokyo, Japan. Let me read a little bit of this article and we'll see if we run into anything interesting. So it starts with facing heavy global pressure and rising athlete dissent, the International Olympic Committee and Japanese officials sharply reversed course Tuesday and agreed that Olympics and Paralympics will not take place this summer in Tokyo in the wake of the growing novel coronavirus pandemic. Organizers say they now hope to stage the games by summer of 2021. The Olympics are the biggest event to date scuttled because of the virus, which has now claimed more than 18,000 lives. Obviously, those numbers are off. If you read them 5 minutes ago, they're already off. So people on 6 of the 7 continents have upended daily life across the globe. I heard a pretty shocking statistic about the millions of people that are currently quarantined. I think it's over 1 billion people that are in some type of quarantine right now.
What?
Very shocking.
Worldwide?
Let's see. Continuing here, it says Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on Tuesday proposed a 1-year postponement to the IOC leadership, including President Thomas Bach. The IOC quickly, blah blah blah. Okay, looks like, yeah, just a bunch more crap about it. Yeah, we're definitely seeing a lot of things canceled. It's going to be interesting or canceled or postponed. There's some events that are happening that I'm aware of that are like 3 months from now or like 6 months from now that haven't been canceled yet, and it's going to be interesting to see how long this plays out and when they're going to start allowing people to go back to big events like shows and huge festivals. I know a lot of people are itching to. I mean, we just barely started, and a lot of people are itching to get out of their solitary and get out to some big events.
Well, they want big events. They want, you had all these sports, it's basically just done. Everything just called it quits. And that was, millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, all the sports companies have lost, which is even snowballed down to, companies like Disney that own ESPN and stuff like that.
Yeah, the total effect on the economy is just I can't even comprehend it. But when they first started that, I think the first sports thing I saw canceled was the NBA, and it was because a Utah Jazz player here from Utah got it and was confirmed to have it. And when I first saw that, that really struck me with how quick they were willing to cancel all the sports. I thought that would be kind of something they would be holding on to, maybe doing live streams but man, yeah, they just put the hammer down on that really early. Okay, did you said you had an article, right?
Yeah, I've actually got something. Well, it's been something that I've thought about on and on, just on my own. I've actually kind of gone back and forth and studied, but there's a lot of remote civilizations that are still actually in the United States that do not have general contact with any other country or people. They're almost like, they have third world countries, whereas those are like almost, second world countries, or not even that. It's like, almost first world countries. They don't have electricity, and they've actually in India, I want to say they have at least 18 different tribes just off the coast on different islands. and they have basically ordered a no contact order with those people since they have absolutely no immune system to fight off any viruses or colds, let alone one that's brand new and having such an impact on the global population. So it's kind of interesting that they went out of their way to basically tell all these people, like, hey, even though we already had tell you, they already have a no contact order with the tribes, but now they've made it a point to basically say if anybody gets in contact with these guys that they're just going to get sick. And I mean, there's a good amount of tribes down in the Mayan temples and whatnot that are still actually just hidden in the in the jungle in the Amazon. And it's kind of the same sort of thing. They've issued the same sort of warnings. Just do not come in contact with them. If you do, remove yourself. You don't want to, because all it takes is basically one of them, and they live in their little tribes together. And you got to think, the whole world's stocking up on hand sanitizer and Lysol, and I don't think they have Lysol on remote islands that don't even have, running water.
Yeah, that's very interesting thing to think about when it comes to all this, and if we do get a hold of this coronavirus as a world, then maybe it's going to be interesting to see if the whole world kind of becomes immune to it, and then maybe someday down the road there will be some contact, and maybe we'll have an outbreak in one of these isolated communities, and it won't be it'll be a huge deal. I know when we came here to America from England, and there was the whole feud between the Native Americans. I know we killed tons of them, but I'm pretty sure I heard a statistic that said that like millions of them, the vast majority of them, died just from the diseases that we brought over.
Well, and you have to think as well if one of these let's just say right now, like, there's been no reports, but it's because they don't have contact with anybody. I mean, what if one of these tribes have already contacted or, come in contact with the virus and they're spreading it throughout their entire tribe and don't even know it. And, they don't have hospitals and ventilators and, anything else that's going to help these people. They're basically, long term, they're, if they end up getting exposed or if they already have, then essentially we're going to lose entire tribes of people.
Yeah, and we would hope that hopefully, obviously this affects older people and immunocompromised people much more. And, who knows, maybe it could we could get a coronavirus sweeping through these isolated tribes and it just wouldn't really have much effect. Maybe there's something about their immune system that's better, well suited. I mean, who knows? It could be a lot of things.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was one of those things that I, going through, all 198 countries and territories that are infected currently, or 199, sorry, just went up one. But all 199, those aren't, I mean, I don't even believe that they are counted as territories or even recognized as territories. They probably are to the UN, but I don't think they are considered territories or countries to the United States.
I see. Wait, are you talking about groups of people within the United States?
No, I'm talking about in general. Like the UN, I believe, recognizes 250 countries and territories, whereas the United States only recognizes 159 or 195.
Oh, that's weird to think about.
So you got to think there's
depending
55.
on who you ask. Oh, that's very strange. Yeah, I wonder where all those are. Like, I imagine there's probably a good amount in like Africa or on some islands or something.
Yeah, there's, like I was saying, there's those. I believe there's 18 tribes off the coast of India. I may be wrong there, but I know that they also have the tribes in the Amazon forest, as well as there's definite remote tribes in Africa that or have little to no contact with anybody, or just choose not to.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some Native American pretty isolated tribes in the US as well. Maybe.
That's very true.
Yeah, could be. All right, let's see. Moving on to this next article. This is something that I've been hearing from quite a few sources, and it's just kind of a movement. It's what I was mentioning earlier, is the movement going around where people are starting to make their own masks, because here in the US we for sure have a shortage, and beyond the shortage that we have, we also have the administration putting out messages that masks are harmful for people and that they don't do anything, and then that they could make things worse, and that you're hoarding them from the medical people, which, that obviously you want to make sure the medical people have them, but that whole message that they're ineffective, it does have some points to it, but the way that you stop this virus is by making sure that everybody in the population wears a mask. There's a graph that shows the different countries that have implemented this procedure of making everyone wear masks, mostly because they have them, which we don't have them. But the trajectory of the spread is way slower and more manageable if everyone's wearing a mask. So this movement here, everyone's making a masks. If you want to make your own, you can watch quick YouTube videos, and you can make them out of basically anything. I mean, even a piece of cloth covering your mouth is going to be better than nothing. So, I mean, like there's the N95 masks, which I think are is about as good as it gets. That actually
got one in front of me right now.
Filters out the air. You have an N95?
Yes, I do. I actually got it when I got two of them when the pollution was actually really bad out here in Utah.
Oh, dude, you're lucky. And so those are the ones with like a little breather filter thing, right?
Correct. I mean, it's not the most comfortable thing to wear, but in a definite, life or death situation, I even have a few that I ordered from Wish just to get. I mean, I don't know, they're not N95 leveled or anything like that, but even just something to cover,
Oh man, dude, that's probably gonna be like a piece of paper on a string when it shows up, if it shows up.
Well, it looks like a piece.
Probably coming from China too.
Well, like those cloth ones that are just all one piece, and I don't know, they don't look like they're that safe. But you know what? Hell, anything at this point to protect yourself, and even if that's wearing gloves or definite hand sanitizer, you could actually make your own hand sanitizer. That's 2/3 alcohol, preferably the 91%, and then anything above that, obviously. But then the other 1/3, if you actually use aloe, or basically, aloe, the stuff you put on, like aloe vera that you put on like burns and stuff, and you mix those, and you got yourself hand sanitizer.
Very interesting. Yeah, I've heard that from a couple other sources. If you're willing to get a little crafty, then you can take care of a lot of these things yourself. I mean, I even saw a video of a guy that showed how to wipe with a single square, and it was not like, I hope I don't ever have to do it, because he got a lot of poop on his finger, but it did work. But yeah, with these masks, I mean, it was coming around on Facebook, all right. But yeah, with these masks, like CJ is saying, anything is better than nothing, because one of the biggest things with this virus is the amount of virus particles that gets into your body upon first exposure really determines how bad the virus is going to get. So I've mentioned exponential growth a lot. This virus will replicate in your body at an exponential rate too. So that means it's going to start really slow, build up faster, and then all of a sudden it's just going to explode everywhere. So if you can stretch out that first little period of replication where it's going slow, and buy your body an extra day or two to build up antibodies and prepare for the war that it's about to wage, then it actually is shown to have a much better recovery if you get dosed with a small amount of virus particles versus a large amount. So the wearing a mask, even if it won't stop all of the particles getting in your mouth, because these things travel in air, so it's going to sneak around the corners and things like that, but at least it'll block you from getting that full blast of particles that's going to, potentially cause you to have a much worse recovery.
And with that, if you have a cough, or if you sneeze, or your nose is drippy, all the above, it's important regardless on if you know you have the virus or you don't know. I mean, basically at this point, they're saying anybody could be a carrier. There's small symptoms that you could feel and you could still be a carrier, and then turn around and, sneeze on somebody or sneeze on something, and, that virus basically lives on things. Like we said, we'll say at least a week. And even with like I said, I was at the bank and the guy next to me was coughing and all sniffly and whatnot, and I'm like, I guarantee he was hitting the buttons. Like he was like, touching the pens, stuff like that. You just gotta realize that you take your own uh, hygiene into perspective, and know that you just gotta shower daily, wash your clothes, like stuff like that is actually long term effective.
Yeah, saving lives for sure. I've heard the most practical way of kind of, and probably the most responsible way of going about this whole thing is to kind of just assume that you have it, and you're not necessarily trying to prevent it getting it from other people. But if you pretend like you have it and you want to try to not give it to other people, then if everyone were to implement that, then that would kind of give us the best result. And like you
Yep.
said, yeah, the main thing of the mask, and this is really proven, is if you're wearing the mask, it's going to really slow down how much you are spreading your virus particles out into the world.
Yeah. Not to mention, just in a sense, pretend like you're committing a crime. Just don't leave anything there. No DNA. No coughing. No boogers. Nothing. Just take everything home with you. Keep it all in your body. Wash your hands after using the bathroom. Like all your basic, essential things. Just take into account that they're gonna affect the long
Yeah,
term probability of this virus replicating and continuing to spread.
I like that strategy. Just pretend like you're trying to murder somebody all the time and you
Yeah.
can't leave a trace
I mean, hell, so you do the same thing. Like, if I do the same thing when I go to the bathroom. I've been just spraying everything. I spray the damn sink after I wash my hands. Spray the doorknob. I spray my phone. Everybody brings their damn phone in the bathroom. Nobody can deny it. And you want to
Yeah.
make sure that you're spraying that and that you're wiping that down. I even went to Walgreens, and they had these little personal care wet wipes that were antibacterial, and they were only $1. So snagged about 5 of those, and just been
Smart.
using
Wow.
those to like wipe off my phone or just even wipe off my hands. It's all the little things.
Geez, sounds like you're more on top of it than me. Luckily, I've been pretty isolated, so I haven't. But I mean, like when I bring in the mail and stuff like that, I definitely wash everything myself. And yeah, it's one of those things that you're not really gonna be able to know if you saved a life or if you kill someone.
Oh yeah,
All these little actions that you're taking are literally, well, I don't want to say, but it's potentially saving someone's life or killing them, and we're never gonna know that. Like
yep.
maybe in a certain handful of scenarios, you'll be able to see, oh, this person for sure transferred it to this person, but the vast majority of them are gonna fly completely under the radar, and you're gonna have no idea if you
Mm.
are responsible for 10 deaths, 100 deaths, 1,000 deaths. you know,
Well, and that's the
Very
thing too.
insane.
You gotta also take into perspective the population, or the amount of population that doesn't even have health insurance. And it's sad to say that we come in a time to where it's you get sick, but you still have to work because that's just how you make your living, and got to stay afloat and whatnot. And we as Americans have come to a point to where, if you have a stuffy nose or a little cough or whatever, or you're sneezing, that's not going to keep you from work, even if you, especially in the food industry, if you try to call off, I mean, there's a very rare chance that there's somebody actually there to cover you. So, I mean, a lot of these people have been force fed the fact that they're, you have to be well enough. You have to be well enough. Like, you got to drive, you've got to continue life moving. And in that sense, I know that all those people that are, living that way are under the same mindset. Like, I can't have it. If I have it, then I can't work. If I have it, then I've infected these people, and they don't want to come to the realization of it, or don't want to be tested, or, like I said, can't be tested because they don't have the insurance, or they're scared of a bill. And in return, they're just infecting everybody they come in contact with.
Yeah, and I've kind of felt a little bit of that denial. It definitely, it seems like the mind's first reaction when it gets hit with something like that, of like, wow, I would really have to drastically change the way I live right now in order to follow these guidelines. It wants to just like deny that and be like, well, no, maybe not this time. Maybe next, maybe, when I get some more proof about it, or when it gets worse, then I'll start, staying home from work, or even just like
Yeah.
not hanging out with somebody, or not inviting that one guy over, you already had planned. Like, I think it's time to accept that this is going to be a very disruptive thing in people's lives.
Yep.
And, the quicker you come to terms with that, the better off we're going to be in this.
Well, yeah, and I mean, that's kind of the whole problem with the way our government, or at least our president's handling it right now, and trying to make it seem like not that big of a deal, or not as big of a deal as it is, which in return is, wanting people to just hurry up and get back to work, and hurry up and, just get back to life, when they don't understand that this is, we're looking at least a, 12-month process of eliminating the source, and then, preventing.
Yeah. The hammer and the dance. You got to put the hammer down, and then it's going to be a long dance, a long, slow dance until this thing
Yeah.
is finally to the point where we don't like, because I mean, life before this, like we didn't have to worry about viruses and shit at all. Like, it was full contact, hugging, and whatever you want. And then now all of a sudden there's this new paradigm where you have to literally worry about killing people and yourself that you come into contact with. And it seems like it's going to be a pretty long time till we can get back to what was normal for us for so many years.
Oh yeah. I mean, it won't be back completely. It'll, this is one of those scars that you'll look at, 10 years from now, and you'll definitely learn from it. And especially when, when it stops spreading and stuff, I guarantee that you'll still see the same sort of sanitary requirements in grocery stores, and in any job setting. They're gonna really take it seriously now.
That's true. We're probably going to see, a lot more awareness because I mean, I've heard that this kind of thing is, I mean, we've kind of been lucky with how far we've gone as growing our society and our population without running into something like this. It's our society is so vulnerable to this type of spread. I mean, in a way, yeah, I think it'll kind of leave a scar and kind of leave people much more prepared for whatever comes in the future as far as pandemics go.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like, one of those things that don't happen often. Every couple of years we do have some sort of outbreak. It's just the way that this one's moving, the speed and the accuracy. It's just jumping on any host that it can and spreading through there.
Yeah, this one's really just fit into a perfect little niche of asymptomatic transmission and highly contagious and having no herd immunity. It's like most of the time when these viruses happen, there's always some weak point that we can wedge in the system and we're able to kind of upend this thing. But this one just happens to be in that perfect category of a high enough serious complication rate to where it can drastically clog our hospitals. And the thing, you cannot have your hospitals get overwhelmed. That is just an unacceptable reality, because that means the thousands of people that use the medical system every day are not going to be able to do that. And that is just a horrific scenario in my mind. If you have a heart attack, or if you're having a baby, or if you're going through anything and you show up at the hospital and it's just a complete shit show there, you probably can't even get face to face with another medical professional, and they basically just tell you to figure it out. That is a very real reality we're going to be facing because of the characteristics of this virus.
I mean, it'll for sure be one of those things too that people will losing my train of thought. When it comes down to a lot of the, I guess I don't want to say smaller things, but a sprained ankle or something like that, they're going to get you in and out as quick as they can, let alone, they may just send you to your primary care doctor. I wouldn't even be surprised if they have entire sections eventually set up for just the hospital, for just, those side patients, like, hey, you have the flu, like, you don't have corona, we can see you here. Or, you're having an asthma attack or something like that, a heart attack, like you said, they're going to have a separate ER for those sorts of situations. Because if they don't, then there really is no containment.
Yeah, I mean, imagine show up with a sprained ankle, leave with the virus, they almost need to get a separate door, separate everything, like coronavirus section of the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, I've been waiting to just have an ultrasound done, or still try to figure out all that stuff. But like I said, it's one of those things to where, or like you just said, sprained ankle, leave with the virus, like stomach issues and a little bit of stomach pain, leave with coronavirus. No thanks. I'll put that on hold for now.
Yeah, definitely anybody that's got any reason why they need to go to the hospital anytime in the next 6 months, or however this plays out. I mean, I'm already pretty skeptical about going, because I don't even have health insurance. I just, I'm kind of rolling the dice on that one, but I would definitely go if something happened. And I mean, yeah, like broken bones, obviously certain things need attention, but yeah, I definitely want to just avoid that as much as possible. I mean, in some states you could probably get in if you had to get in these next couple days. They're not overwhelmed yet, but what we're bound to head into, I think that we are going to see basically every single state in the United States having hospital issues, basically all at the same time when this thing's peaking. I think basically every hospital in the nation is going to be pretty packed.
Well, and if you see from China and Italy's standpoint, we don't even know, all these, even here, I guess, doctors are starting to be infected. And there's, you also have to take into account the possibility that you could have a lot of medical workers just walk out.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, right before we were starting this, while I was waiting for you to join, I just barely saw a video posted. It's actually from more than a month ago, but when Wuhan was really in the trenches with this, which they're probably still going through a lot of stuff, but man, the doctors and the medical staff in China, like this video is just showing them just freaking out, yelling at administration, telling them like this is like torture to them. They can't handle it. They're afraid for their life. They haven't gotten a break in over 24 hours. I mean, it's just a very, and like you said, if the medical staff starts getting it, this could go from bad to really bad to like unimaginable. If a good half of the medical staff gets it, like it almost in my mind seems that there could be this breaking point where it's basically just a free for all. Like the medical staff just evacuates the hospital, and it's just free for all from there. I
Yep.
could potentially see that happening somewhere.
Well, and even here in the U.S., they're starting to fast track these people that were supposed to graduate and become doctors. They're pushing them forward, or anybody that's in college to join the medical field or that's trying to complete a certificate of some sort. They're taking handouts. I don't know if they're specifically doing it everywhere. I know that New York is doing it, and I'm not sure about other states yet, but I know they basically pulled a bunch of people aside from those colleges there, and that were specifically seemed like they were ready or had enough training and whatnot, enough hands-on training and enough knowledge to just basically fast track everything, graduate, and put them on the line right away.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit on the last show, and like we said, there's probably not a whole lot of technical knowledge you need to be able to handle this. It's mostly just
Mm-hmm.
a need of bodies, a need of equipment, and yeah, I mean, for those people, I would be feeling damn near the same as getting drafted into the war, and you're going to be on the front lines because I mean, for the vast majority of us, this is going to be a fairly relaxing, isolated experience. Unless things get really bad, then maybe we'll start seeing looters and we'll start seeing the system kind of crack and break down. But for them, for the medical people, they're at a full on war. Depending on which hospital we're talking about, they're pretty much going into war mode for potential weeks or potential months of every single
Yep.
day seeing people die, having to make quick decisions of who you're going to give the ventilator to. And, oh, this guy's a little bit younger. He's got a little bit better chance of living. So we're going to have to just let the old guy die or potentially see if he can just breathe on his own. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've heard the death is not a good thing to watch or to happen to you. I'm pretty sure you basically just choke on. It feels like you're drowning. Basically, I don't know if they've got
Mm-hmm.
medication to kind of ease that process along. Hopefully they do, because I can only imagine choking for like a day as you fight for your life.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, really
that's the
scary.
thing too. I've I've actually had people, friends and family and whatnot that have friends or family that they've been in contact with that not physical contact, but just over the phone or whatnot, and people are actually starting to make that call, which is very strange. But they're calling and saying, "Hey, by the way, I had this teacher, and this teacher had COVID-19. Therefore, I was exposed. Therefore, you may have been exposed because I was exposed to you." Like, I mean, it's almost like a STD
Uh,
talk. Like, you gotta tell people, hey, by the way, I don't want to burst your bubble. And I mean, it's kind of like the same when it comes to that too. Could you be held accountable, like lawfully, if when it comes down to something like that, if you like knowingly have been tested, or if you knowingly have been in contact with somebody, and just continue to go on your merry way, and go shopping and do whatever, have hangouts or see friends or family or whatever, you're potentially putting everybody's life at risk.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if we see any lawsuits potentially after this, or if it's just going to be a total shit show and none of that's going to be able to get a foothold.
If
But
you
yeah,
or
I
a
mean, I
loved one has
guarantee
been infected by the COVID-19 crisis, there may be a settlement for you.
exactly. Yeah. Did somebody neglect your personal space? And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you see something like that. But also, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some asshole out there in the world, just because there's a lot of assholes in the world who maybe gets it and maybe tries to spread it to as many people as possible. Maybe some sort of anarchist or something. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Anyway, did you have another article? I've got a couple here, mostly pertaining to the economy, but we can get into one if you have one.
Let's see here.
Oh man, I cracked a beer right before this. Drinking a Blue Moon, by the way. Just trying to relax a little bit, and ended up spilling half the thing right before the show.
Oh,
so wasted half of my supply beer of that particular bottle, at least.
Oh,
not too much beer going around. I only grabbed like 2 6-packs to kind of put away. So
yeah.
Precious stuff right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I still need to hit that liquor store just for the doomsday prepping. I was reading an article that I actually came across that you may find interesting as well. It basically starts just in the summer of 2008, an elderly psychic who claimed she started receiving premonitions at age 5 published a book that contained an ominous prediction. In around 2020, a severe pneumonia-like illness will spread throughout the globe, attacking the lungs and the bronchial tubes and resisting all known treatments. Almost more baffling than the illness itself will be the fact that it will suddenly vanish as quickly as it arrived, attack again 10 years later, and then disappear completely. Basically just goes on to say that this author, Sylvia Brown, published a book, and that would be back in 2008, and the book's called The End of Days. It's just predictions and prophecies, and she claims that she's been having these premonitions since she was 5, and basically she actually passed away in 2013, but just more recently with the outbreak and whatnot, and with what she was describing, her End of Days book is actually number 2 on Amazon's nonfiction chart.
Oh, gee. So, as of recently?
Yeah, as of recently. So there are people that are starting to take this as a doomsday end of days. I mean, what, 2012 Y2K type deal. And I mean,
there's always that. I mean, the way I personally see these type of things is there's so many people across the world that's making all sorts of weird predictions and stuff all the time that there's a pretty good chance that, you know, we're going to come across some that actually kind of do end up being kind of true. And I mean, you know, like flu, you know, different types of flus have come through and done a real number on humanity in multiple different scenarios, multiple different times in our past. And so it's not too outlandish of a thing to write, you know. I believe I saw this thing. I saw it on Facebook or something, and it said like around 2020, a flu virus had come, you know, and that's kind of how I see it. I mean, I don't think there's like any sort of validity, I guess, to things like this, but it is an interesting thing to see happen, though.
But yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny considering, and I mean, they do have the whole, you know, fires in Australia and melting of the glaciers, and, you know, and then, or well, that's not all in her book, but now that's what people are saying, that all this is in the Bible, and the Lotus taking over Africa, and I mean, it's kind of just one of those things, like, regardless, end of the world, or, you know, just a virus, just keep yourself protected, keep yourself, you know, very clean, and you know, just try to avoid situations that are going to put you to where you may possibly get sick, and kind of just go from there. Like, you know, a lot of people are going to be able to, you know, a good majority of people are going to be able to tell their grandkids stories about, you know, how they lived through the 2020 COVID-19 crisis, and, you know, the whole COVID-19 economy slump. And, you know, you got to think positively on it in a sense to where if you do take the right steps and you do everything that's basically been instructed, more or less, then, you shouldn't have an issue.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's definitely going to be, I mean, the way I see it, news and history is being written right now. And I'm very glad that I'm personally paying attention to it. I know for a lot of people, I mean, a good portion of my friends and stuff, they're just really not into the news, which I completely understand because 99% of the time, the news is just dramatic bullshit and distractions. But as soon as I got a whiff of this, and as soon as I realized how big of an event this was really going to be, I decided that I'm going to dedicate a lot of time looking into this particular thing because every single day that passes, we are seeing history be made in the financial markets, in the
Oh,
government
yeah.
policies that are being passed, the bailouts, the healthcare crisis. I mean, this is, and the nice thing is for the people that are paying attention to this, they're going to really know how this is playing out. They're going to be able to describe
Yeah.
in detail the steps of what happened and the perceptions that people were having at the time. And yeah, this is this is like we said in last podcast. This is like potentially our World War III. This is our thing
Hmm.
that our grandkids are going to look up at us and just be in wonder of how we lived through such a crazy time.
Well, it's crazy even to think about, how this is going to result in even traveling internationally. After all this passes, countries are going to be very, very close to, quarantine passengers that seem sick, as well as, take whatever precautions they need to test people or to, do temperatures at the airport. Like, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of health screening at all these big airport hubs and whatnot.
Yeah, it could definitely leave a kind of a permanent mark on people. I know after 9/11, there was just people were really
Hmm.
reluctant to go on flights, and it just kind of it's just that recency bias of things that have happened recently in our lives. We kind of assume that it's going to happen again. And before this, we didn't really have a serious virus or pandemic, so we didn't think it was possible really. But now that it has happened, and especially if it carries on for months and months, because then that's going to carry with people because you get into this mindset of isolating and not coming in close contact with people and not doing certain activities. And that mindset's not just going to disappear entirely in society. It's going to have a pretty lasting psychological effect. But I've actually got a statistic here since we touched on 9/11. Let's see, this is from March 26th, posted at 9:27 a.m. on Twitter by Michael Brendan Doherty. I'm not sure who that is. It seems like he's an important person in New York, but he posted on Twitter last night. EMS in New York took 6,406 medical 911 calls, the highest volume ever, surpassing 9/11 in
Wow,
2001. So the
man.
the the amount of 911 calls they've got is higher than in 9/11, which just
Yeah.
really demonstrates the seriousness of what's happening right now. And I heard somebody,
Yeah.
I heard Chris Martinson, I got that statistic from Chris Martinson, and I heard him say that it's likely that we're going to see that same thing happen in basically every state.
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Okay.
You're cutting in and out.
Oh, I said it's likely we're going to see that record broken. The highest volume of 911 calls. We're likely going to see that record broken in every state.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And it's going to hit a point, too, to where, if you're calling 911, they're going to try to do as much as they can over the phone.
Yeah,
Same
they're
with
probably going to be
doctors,
straight up with you. Yeah, and say,
They're going to do
look, we
a lot
can't get
of
an ambulance out to
video.
you for 2 hours.
Yeah. I can't
Yeah,
wait
a
until
video.
they start putting in doctors and nurses that have actually contracted the virus and then have healed from it because they already have the antibodies in their system. Therefore, they could work and they can't be really infected again.
Yeah, those guys are going to be practical superheroes when this is all getting to that point.
Yeah, I think
But
those are the people who should be taken care of.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty crazy. I mean, like all these 911 calls are flooding in because probably the majority of people, they're getting this virus and they're being told to self quarantine and they're staying at home and it's getting worse and worse and they're starting to feel like shit, and then they start getting that really worrying symptom of having a difficulty breathing. That's a really terrifying symptom when you're noticing that you're having difficulty breathing, and then at some point someone's going to call the ambulance. Or I mean, if it was me, I would probably try and drive that person to the hospital. But
yeah, save yourself an ambulance bill.
Yeah, ambulance bill. And if we're in the height of the crisis, there may not be an ambulance available for an hour or more.
Very true. And I mean, you got to think too as well. Whenever they send an ambulance, they send a fire truck. they that's a full response team. Sometimes they even send a police officer.
Yeah, a lot of resources it takes, and I mean, we have a great system of ambulances and police officers and firefighters and medical people, but there's just this certain number, this quantity. I can almost picture a graph in my head of it's this fantastic system, and as long as we operate within this certain quantity of people, it works amazing. We can save basically everybody's life. But as soon as it outsteps that quantity and it starts getting to quantities that this fantastic system can't handle, then there's going to be lives lost just because we don't have the necessary resources.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad, but I mean, it's also a deep realization that there's not enough hospital beds for if half of Americans were to get sick. I mean, you have to open up the door for potentially any possibilities, and I've seen that they've actually been converting stadiums now into quarantine centers and testing centers, so that way, since stadiums have such a huge capacity, like baseball stadiums, football stadiums, they've just been putting hospital beds actually on like the field and have been filling those up and basically, like I said, potentially turning them into little like triage units for people that are infected and for people that need to be tested because there aren't hospital beds in the hospital.
Yeah, that's smart. I mean, they canceled all the sports, so we have these huge facilities ready to go. So we might as well. And I know that'll probably work for some things, like you said, like quarantines. That'll be a pretty good idea. But I think we have something around like 45,000 ICU beds in the U.S. And an ICU room, that's a really high tech thing going on there. You can't just whip up a new ICU room. It's a lot of machinery,
a couple 100,000.
And the staff that needs to be there to take care of an ICU room too. And I mean, 45,000, and a good portion of those are being used all the time, just by the regular flow of people. And so maybe we got 30,000 available, and as of right now, we have 2,000 patients in need of an ICU bed. And and the thing about that is we have maybe 30,000 available nationwide, and there's not going to be the people in all the right places near the right ICU bed at the right time. So, I mean, realistically, we're going to start seeing issues running it, with the nation's ICU beds running out. As soon as we have even 10,000 patients in critical care, we're going to start running into issues of not having the necessary amount of beds and ventilators. I know New York is having some serious issues with ventilators, and the car companies are stepping in to try and get a couple thousand more. But yeah, we just need thousands and thousands of these really expensive machines to give people a chance of survival. And a patient could be on a ventilator for 3 or more weeks. So that number is just building up and building up and building up, and it takes people so long to get over this damn thing that it's just that's just if this virus didn't have that one aspect to it of overwhelming our medical system, then all the other statistics about it, you could compare it to the flu or whatever, or you could compare it to like heart disease, like millions of people or whatever die from heart disease every year. But it's just the fact that it takes so much resources to deal with any of these cases that go critical. That's the one thing that could throw our entire life as we know it into a spiral, from the economy to the health aspect to just everything. Everything needs to be focused on fixing this problem right now.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's the problem with trying to reopen everything at this point. You really do have to take a step back before you could move forward. You have to, you're not going to please a lot of people, and there's going to be a vast majority of the population opposed, but you have to think, yeah, we're in a free country, and there's going to be a lot of people that are, this is my right, but long term, you're going to have to make some sort of restrictions on the entire country to make some sort of impact.
Yeah, definitely. And we touched on this a little bit in the last show. People in America, we're going to be much more resistant at giving up those rights than in China. That type of thing could really that, and just all the misinformation going around, and all the people that think that we're going to be done by Easter, and that we need to have our mindset on reopening businesses right now. I mean, just the level
that should not be our main concern.
Oh man, it's setting us up for a potential, like, we could lose more lives in this than any of the wars. World War II, millions and millions of people could die from this, just incomprehensible amounts, just because of these small little mistakes we're making right now. We're
going to hit a point where there's not going to be enough beds, and there's going to be basically people that need to be seen for this virus that aren't going to be able to be seen, that aren't going to be able to be treated. And then if we do run out of, ventilators and stuff like that, then, I mean, how long can you keep somebody alive without a ventilator? Do you have to have somebody sitting there pumping oxygen into them constantly? Like, I mean, you're thinking about you got to think long term, where there's going to literally be people in these waiting rooms just gasping for air and nowhere for them to be. Like, the most severe cases are going to be those cases that are already on ventilators, and it's going to be it's sad, but it's going to be pick and choose. That's already what they're doing in other countries as well, is like, this person has cancer and is not going to make it very long. This person's in their 80s, whereas this person's like 25 years old and good health, so we have a better chance of saving them. So let's try to move forward and save them. And it's really coming down to that. But you have to think, well, in a sense too, those people that already do have cancer, those people like that are going to the hospital for any reason, like they're not going to have the attention that is usually needed. All the focus is going to potentially be on just this virus.
Yeah, that definitely has a potential to just turn into a complete shit show. And I mean, we've seen already in the US, we are growing cases faster, way faster than anybody else in the world. And we do not have the strictest lockdowns going on right now. And so, I mean, we could potentially see things happening here that's far worse than other countries. And, with how much Trump values the economy over everything else, I mean, this whole virus is always one step away from turning into something way bigger than it was. And I mean, we've already missed a lot of the early steps, which, you know, would have really hurt our economy. But, you know, now every little step we miss could potentially, it's just growing this into something that's way, you know, every single day it's getting exponentially worse and just getting to a level that is just difficult to comprehend, honestly.
Oh yeah, and I mean,
Oh, dark
even
stuff.
just yesterday or today, I guess technically still, I guess it would be yesterday update wise, but a third of all the cases were from the United States.
Wow.
Because I mean, you got to think we
Yeah.
had 17,224 cases, and there was a total of 60,841. Which, even in perspective,
Wow.
yesterday we had 145, I believe, or well, it was 45,000. I mean, so we've grown 15,000 cases just today, or just on top of that. So now we're looking at 60,000 a day. Like you were saying, within the next few days, we will be looking at 100,000 cases a day, and
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
the
Last
amount
time
of
we were on the
active cases
show,
and recovered, yeah.
yeah, last time we were on this show, which was I think about 4 days ago, we were talking about here when it first broke 30,000 around March 22nd or so, and then it immediately jumped to 32,000, and then all the way up to 41,000, 43, 48, and then yesterday, or is today March 26th, or is that yesterday? Let's
Today
see.
is the
Today's the
26th
26th.
still.
Yeah, so far today, which I believe it's about to end, we are at 60,000 cases, and yeah, as this graph gets bigger and bigger, all the previous numbers they just have to shrink them down to match the new growth of the new bars.
Yep.
And yeah, it's just that classic exponential explosion. And if that continues, then this is going to be potentially really dark thing. I'm hoping we don't have to end the show on such a dark note. We've just been
Yeah.
hitting the listeners, like kicking them in the nuts over and over with how bad this is going to be. Hopefully we can
Like,
touch
I'm
on
sorry,
something a little
but
positive.
like
Yeah,
on
I
a
mean, and of
positive
course,
note, the sun's shining, the grass is green, and you could still go up to the mountains. You could still camp. You could still fish. It's probably a hell of a lot safer to be.
yeah, definitely all those types of things going on, snowmobiling, or they closed down all the ski resorts. You can't go snowboarding, but yeah, walks, writing a book, any type of project that you've wanted to get done. Because
Finish that
basically for
music,
a good
people.
majority, yeah, any type of art project. For me, honestly, because I've been writing a book before this, but as soon as this really started to explode, it kind of grabbed my whole attention. And I've found myself having a bit of a hard time going back to my book just because of how much is going on this and just how kind of a single lane my brain is. I just want to get laser focused on something and learn everything about it that I possibly can. But I have a feeling that once this really starts to settle in, and with the quarantines, I mean, we're technically not even under lockdown or anything here yet.
No.
Even though I've been locking myself down for the most part, I feel like I'm in a bit of a quarantine limbo where I'm 100% prepared for quarantine. I've been prepared for like weeks, and now it's just like I'm just waiting for the order.
Yeah. I mean, that's the
Is that
thing.
kind of
I
how you
mean,
feel?
yeah, and I mean, I'm pretty much set. The one thing that I want to do still is uh, get all my stuff from Home Depot, get all my seeds and whatnot, and even just start getting planning. I know we just had that little bit of snow, but just gotta start shifting some sort of focus towards just maintaining a regular schedule in life. These you wake up and you're so used to going to work or whatever certain time, you get home certain time. And I mean, even in my sense, it's like I've been just sitting. I was sick all of January pretty much, or all of February, so it's just like I've been kind of in limbo as it is, and I've already been kind of stir crazy. So it's like I've even thought about applying at Smith's and joining the fight, and it's
Yeah.
not something that I go back and forth on because it's how much am I going to be exposed? What precautions are they taking for their staff, or is it literally just they're trying to staff up so that way they can keep stuff on the shelves and keep producing money?
Yeah, it's definitely that feeling that you like. I remember kind of growing up as a kid, like you picture going into the military, and you kind of want to get out and be in the fight, and maybe a lot of people will probably feel that same type of feeling from this, just because a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
are used to going to work, doing physical labor every day and whatever, and if the opportunity calls to get out there and help in the world somehow, I see a lot of people probably taking advantage of that, going maybe
Mm-hmm.
helping. I've heard, like a city. What's the word for that? Like the people who do the trash and the cleaning and all the
Oh
city
yeah.
maintenance stuff. I've heard
Mm-hmm.
that they're kind of in need of some people. I'm sure like food donation places. I'm sure as
Post
we see
office.
this, yeah, as we get into like a full national lockdown, we'll probably see a lot of volunteer opportunities open up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like
Well,
I
even
said,
with
that's
even
basically going
hospitals,
into the war.
I expect to see a lot of previous people that were infected, like we had just said before. Those people that have had the virus and have been cured or have been all the way through, or showing negative signs now and testing negative. I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of those people even be called forward by the government and be requested to volunteer at testing centers or volunteer even at hospitals doing whatever they can, since those people aren't can no longer carry the virus.
Definitely, yeah. I know for me personally, I am probably gonna do my best to avoid any type of situation where it would be really grueling and just especially like the medical side of things, because I mean that's going to be a really intensive job. I mean, I may volunteer in something to do with the food, or some type of local service or something. But yeah, for the most part, I want to just kind of stay holed up in my cave and just try to ride this through. I really don't want to get it, if that's even
Yeah,
possible. I don't know if that's even possible, because just
I
because of all the
it is.
exposure.
If you've
Yeah,
been quarantined for about 2 weeks, then you pretty much, you would know at this point if you've had it. And uh, when it comes down to it, too, like they have all the different side effects or stuff that starts happening. They say you lose your taste, lose your smell. Now they've, you get to where you can't breathe, shortness of breath, headaches, high fever, and I mean, it's basically just any kind of symptom, like you would know for sure. So I mean, there's going to be a good amount of people that have quarantined themselves and that have been like kind of how we are. I have been a lot more out and about than you, but I mean, I've been gloving up and hand sanitizer in and taking that vitamin C and zinc. And I
yeah,
mean, it's all about just going on with daily life. I mean, that's essentially the
yeah.
goal.
That's true. There's a certain degree of where you just kind of have to accept that this is to a certain degree out of your control. I mean, you can
Hmm.
do what you can do, but I mean, you cannot control everything. And so I've kind of mentally prepared myself that, if I do get it, then, kind of be ready for that. And it's the long game that really kind of makes me feel a little worried, is just because if this plays out how I'm thinking, it's going to be a 6 month or a year thing. And, I may be able to avoid this thing for a month or a couple weeks, but at some point, there's going to be a crack in my defenses where this thing's probably going to sneak through, especially if everybody around you's got it and, half the population's got it. It's going to be,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and even if you come out the other end without having got this, you know, what if it's still hanging on somewhere out there? You
Yeah.
know,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
I mean, like I said before in the last podcast, and it's actually came up. I found articles about now that have talked about how the glaciers melting have released all these different viruses and all these different bacterias and contagions and whatnot into the atmosphere. So I mean, even once this is gone, it may exist in animals. There may still be bats out there that have it. Nobody's testing animals right now. It's not one of those things that's a priority. But if somehow it was to mutate, and I mean, God forbid, like our cattle to get it, then we'd be screwed.
that's true. Just lose all your food source, all like that. But yeah, this is definitely something that I think is going to change humanity's outlook on pandemics altogether, because this is definitely something we've been vulnerable to. And now that we're having something where it's really coming through and showing people what these viruses are capable of, I'm hoping that we build a society that's more resilient, through the economy, through the healthcare system, through our response, through just people, maybe, for people's food storage. Just like, imagine if everyone with their food storage had masks stocked up as well. This
Yeah,
just
exactly.
things like that. I feel like we just need to, if we're going to have a society of billions of people on the planet, we have to include pandemic response as
Got to
part
be
of our
prepared. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So
everyday life. I
hopefully this
mean,
educates people there.
yeah, but I mean, we'll definitely see. I mean, my current prediction kind of goes along with you. I mean, we're going to be seeing cases and 100,000 new cases. I mean, I mean for sure by Monday, no later than Monday. I mean, probably even earlier than that.
Yeah, 6 days ago we were at 30,000, and now we're at 60,000. So in less than a week, for sure, we'll be at 100,000.
I wouldn't even put it past in a week from now for it to be at 200,000.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't either. This thing could, and like we talked about before, we're gonna reach the limits of our testing capacity, and at that point, you just can't really rely on the numbers anymore, because this thing will be spreading faster than we. I mean, even like confirming 100,000 cases in one day.
Yep.
Like, just put yourself in the shoes of every single one of those patients that had that thing rammed up their nose. 100,000 people,
Yep.
probably 500,000 people that got the test, and
Mm,
100,000 of them came back positive. Like, that's so many fucking people.
yeah, that's unheard of.
Yeah,
And I mean, to
we
already
got
be at a
billions.
500,000 cases, over 500,000 cases. I mean, it's starting to, hit that point to where once we start seeing 100,000 cases a day, then this thing's gonna jump, taking millions of people's life like away for a while. Those that get infected, but let alone, it's gonna take hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of lives that altogether aren't gonna make it through this. I mean, just with the recovery rate, I mean, they have 148,000 cases that have closed an outcome, and 124,000 of them have been recovered and discharged, but still 24,000 have died. So 16% of the cases of like the outcome have ended in death. And in that sense, once you have 100,000 people diagnosed every single day, that number is going to go up, and we could potentially see 20 to 30% of the people that contract this virus end up dying. Not to be
That's
dark.
possible. If I had to make a prediction, I would probably say the death rate is gonna end up somewhere around 5% or so. But I mean, honestly, I don't know exactly why it's so high right now. My guess would be that there's probably a good amount of cases out there that we're not registering at all, and that's
Yeah.
probably bringing it. Because there's no way it's at 16%. Like that is just. I mean, because we're probably only seeing where the majority of the cases we're seeing are the more serious ones. So, but I mean, even 5% is a huge deal. And especially if the medical system gets overwhelmed, because then we're going to tack on another 10% just like that,
Yeah.
just because we're not going to be able to save the people's lives that we could have saved.
Yeah. Well, it's going to have some very, very long-lasting effects.
Yeah,
Especially
no doubt. And
I was going to say in the workplace. I mean, yeah, unemployment's low right now, but as things start to go back to normal, you got to think that all these people that have lost their lives are essentially leaving open jobs as well. I mean, not that it's a icing on the cake or anything, but these are all going to be open jobs that aren't going to be filled. So we're going to have a huge amount of companies that are going to be surging to look for people, but a majority of people that were employed beforehand will have their jobs back. So there's going to be a lot of struggling businesses, even, not with just money wise, but also employee wise.
that's true. I think it's going to be a pretty different world when we're all done. But I do have a couple articles here. Maybe we'll just kind of touch on a little bit of these. This one right here kind of goes in line with what you were just talking about. In China, so obviously we don't believe China's numbers at all. As each day passes, their numbers become more and more obvious bullshit. Like at first I was kind of wondering maybe there was a chance, but now I am 100% positive that all those numbers are bullshit. And
Hashtag I don't
this
trust the
is
Chinese. I mean, I
exactly,
don't trust the
and
Chinese government.
there's mountains of evidence, circumstantial evidence as to why I don't. And this is just one small reason why I don't. And this article says here 21 million fewer cell phone users in China may suggest a high CCP virus death toll. So basically, what happened here is 21 million of the phone contracts that were in China just fell off all of a sudden. So that could suggest a lot of different things, issues with the economy, issues with people paying. But in China, they use their phone for basically everything. It's like a tracking thing. It's their payment method, and so
They're even
it's
tracking
pretty.
people that have come in contact with the virus at this point.
Yeah, they're using it for that, which is kind of an advantage they have over us, because we wouldn't allow that. But yeah, there's a lot of people that think that part of this 21 million, maybe not the whole thing, but a portion of it is potentially a few million people that died from this virus and no longer, need a phone because they're dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's very
Yeah, just
possible.
just strange evidence. I mean, obviously we can't draw too many conclusions from this, but it's very strange to see something like this. Just 21 million people just canceling their cell phone plan.
Yeah, not something that you would
And
see in a regular basis, or that you would even see, if people were healthy. I do believe that there is a good percentage of those people that were what's it called, or a lot of those contracts may have been through companies that are shut down, but I think that you said 21 million. I mean, that's unheard of, and a lot of those may be personal, actual personal lines. It's one of those things that we've yet to see, but I'm curious what those satellite images of China shows, and if we are seeing mass graves in places like Iran, then what puts it off the table for anywhere like China with such a mass population? I mean, they even you have to consider they have organ harvesting there, where they take people out of
yeah,
their, you go to prison and you wake up one day and they're like, hey, you're picked. and you go to this hospital and they put you under and they start taking stuff from you. So I mean,
Yeah. Seriously,
it's just
I've heard a good amount about that. That is not a conspiracy. That is
no,
straight
no,
up
it's very
happening
true. Yep,
and has been happening for like a decade now, and
yep.
no one really has the balls to challenge them on it. But that is
Hmm.
just that's modern day, horrific shit. That's like what that's like what Hitler did. The whole that's like well, not numbers wise, but just on the horrific level, that's like modern day Holocaust type of shit.
Yeah, it's
Thousands and
gotten
thousands of people
to the point
being
where
harvested.
you could. I actually watched a special on it. It was I believe it was a 2020 special, but they went in there with a guy that was dressed and ready, and he was like, "Hey, like I need a new liver. Like like how long is it going to take for me to get a new liver? Oh, well, we could put you on this list, and like it may take up to 6 months, possibly past that, or you could look into an option that's a lot faster, but it does cost a little bit more money." And the guy goes on to explain basically how he could essentially pick what type of liver he would get. So he just said, "Hey, can I have somebody that's under 30's liver? A white person that's under 30?" And they said, "Okay, yeah, we could actually order that for you," and had it all set up, and it was about 30 grand. But you got to think, in a country where there's essentially like organ markets where you can go and you could find black market organs, they're gonna be a little corrupt when it comes down to their medical system reporting numbers. Their population. They also have a lot of issues with famine there. A lot of people aren't being fed. They're going hungry. I definitely believe in the long run that China is yanking our chain a little bit.
No doubt, they definitely are. And I mean, even just like if we were to get thousands and thousands of video or views on this podcast, which I highly doubt, but if this was to become kind of a big thing, then we would have to start worrying about the Chinese, because there's algorithms that can read these whole podcasts and YouTube videos and such, and they can
Mm-hmm.
start shadow banning you and demonetizing you. And I mean, if you're really big in the media and you make China look bad, your life's potentially at stake, your livelihood's potentially at stake, your reputation. Like they will
Yeah.
stop it. No, the Chinese Communist Party and whoever's involved with the whole organ harvesting thing. I mean, it's a pretty commonly known fact that they're doing this shit, and
Mm.
it's just. And I mean, there's good amount of bad people benefiting from it. There's probably a bunch of people that don't really want it to come out to light because rich people know that now they can go get a liver if they need one. But yeah, just really terrible shit. And it's like China's probably going through some pretty crazy things right now with the virus and the economy. And the way I see it, maybe it's fucking time for something to come through the world like this and just shatter everything and just give us a fresh restart. I know the Chinese people are suffering quite a bit from their government, and maybe it's going to take something like this to and maybe something like this will bring us into a decade of hardship and
Yeah.
battling the government and potential wars and uprisings. But at the end of all that, I think this has a potential because society's just pretty fucked up right now. And I
Yeah.
think maybe this whole thing could come through and pave the way for something much better.
Yeah. No, definitely agree with you there. It's definitely a high note.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've been going for, I don't know how long, quite a while. So maybe we'll end on a relatively high note there, and we'll go ahead and call this. Like I said at the beginning, I really appreciate you doing this with me. I think this is going to
Oh
be a
yeah.
really therapeutic thing as we get deeper and deeper into this. I definitely want to continue doing this.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. And I mean, for any listeners out there, anybody that does listen all the way through and doesn't find us too boring, does like the information, give us a like, give us a share, pass it on. All we are trying to do is spread the information and kind of get an idea of what's correct. and basically relay that back to you guys.
Yeah, and with all the craziness that you hear on mainstream media, and just there's like a separation between you and mainstream media, and it's just so cold. And I'm hoping that this is kind of something much more relatable, and you feel like you're just listening to your homies talk over, and they just happen to have researched this quite a bit. And so I just want this to kind of be just a place that people can go and get the hard truth, get the real truth. Yep. We're not sugarcoating shit, but we're also, I mean, what I'm trying to do is bring that human element to this. And I'm hoping that we can get, a couple people that enjoy listening to us. And so, yeah, like CJ said, give us a follow. Hopefully you'll tune in to the next show, but thank you for joining on this one. We'll hope to see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Catch you later.